Hi, and welcome to this week's Nasty Nelson podcast, brought to you by Pickleball News Asia. This week, I'm going to go into rating systems again. But before I do that, if you like what we do, please do like this video or subscribe to our channel. It helps us get our message out wider, and we really appreciate it. So, as mentioned, something caught my eye this week on one of the news stories that we covered on pickleballnewsasia.com, and that was about an agreement signed or a partnership that was put together between USA Pickleball and DUPR or DUPR, where they say they're going to seal a partnership where DUPR will be the official and exclusive rating system for USA Pickleball. It caught my eye because I still have some concerns about the rating systems being so closely associated with the governing bodies, because I feel there are some issues around the rating systems. And it's interesting that in the same week that I saw this article, in Malaysia, the Malaysia Pickleball Association actually ran the Malaysia Closed tournament for 2025. And interestingly, in that tournament, they stated that part of the rationale or aims behind that tournament is to establish their own ranking system that is not using DUPR or any one of the other kind of publicly available ranking systems. They're trying to put together their own Malaysian ranking systems. Now, at the moment, I don't actually know how that one works, but I think it's interesting that they're perhaps departing from using one of the kind of ubiquitous rating systems that are out there. So let me think about here, why do I still have concerns about this? So first of all, as a rating system, and let's be clear, the announcement that was we covered on Pickleball News Asia, USA Pickleball are referring to this as a rating system, not a ranking system, and there is a difference. But why do I have concerns about this? Well, I think, first of all, if you look at what DUPR is, and you can go back to the interview I did with DUPR a few weeks ago, we'll put the link in the descriptions of this video. I think it's fair to say that what DUPR is, what the ranking system is aiming to do, is give an accurate indication of the level that you play at. And I think that's fair enough, and it's a good thing, and it's helpful for, especially when you're trying to find similar level players to play in social games or in competitions. But when it comes to using that as a way to rank players, decide which players can play against each other in local or regional or national tournaments, I still see some issues with that that I would like to get into. So one of them that we see is that the way that these ranking systems work, like DUPR, the reality is that many of us play the same people over and over again. We actually play quite a limited number of people, even in tournaments, particularly in smaller countries like Malaysia or Thailand as compared to, say, the US. And what that means is that group tends to converge, their DUPR ratings converge, because if they're all at a similar level to start with, it's very difficult to raise up. Or down, for that matter, in any large way. And I've anecdotally seen evidence of this, that a DUPR rating in one location may not translate to a DUPR rating in another location. So for instance, again, anecdotally, I play in Malaysia, but I've traveled abroad to places like Indonesia, Thailand, Hong Kong. And when I play with, say, 3.5s or 4s in those other countries, it's very clear that they're at a different level from a 3.5 or 4 in another country. So the issue that I see with the rating system is it doesn't necessarily give a fair reflection outside of the group that you're in. And that's something that has to be looked at. And then when you're then looking at a national body adopting that rating system, you have to think about whether some of these issues are really factoring into how they're going to use that rating system to truly get rankings across players in their region. So I have an issue with that. Now, in addition to that, again, when I'm looking at national bodies trying to get a rating and ranking system in place, you really want it to be fair, you want it to be accurate, and you want it to be accurate within the geography for which they are responsible. And one of the other issues that I can see with DUPR is what I call the line in the sand, the starting point. And we see this again in these small communities of players that some players come in as early players, but they have a very high ability because, say, they've come in as elite tennis players before or elite badminton players. They have a very high starting ability, but their starting DUPR does not reflect that. And whilst I understand from an algorithm and analytics point of view, things smooth out over time with numbers, reality is, when you're playing someone that has a very low DUPR because they're just starting, but actually their ability is already very high, for existing players that have a higher DUPR, this can bring their rating down because the DUPR of the new player doesn't really reflect their true ability. Now, I know that DUPR does have like a reliability factor, but based on the numbers that I see and the way that the points score, we do see that people with very new DUPRs that have low DUPR ratings really do impact those players with higher DUPR ratings. So this, what I call the baseline, the line in the sand, is something that I believe is an issue. And I know that there's another rating company out there called VAIR, V-A-I-R. And one of the things that I find very interesting about their approach is their starting point is they analyze your play and give you a rating before you then start submitting your scores. And that line in the sand seems to be something that makes much more sense to me, because you really do have varying levels of new players, and some of them that come in that are very new may have very high standards to start with, and that needs to be reflected from the first time they play. So I like what VAIR do, but my point being here is that these rating systems are great, but for national associations like USA Pickleball or whether it's in my case, the Malaysia Pickleball Association, to hitch themselves to these rating systems, who I believe are still on a learning curve, doesn't necessarily make sense if what you're trying to do is get a ranking and rating system for players under your jurisdiction. So again, looking at that, perhaps the way to go is not like this agreement that's been sealed by USA Pickleball, but perhaps it's more like the MPA way, Malaysia Pickleball Association, who are trying to develop their own ranking system. As I said, I haven't looked into it, do not know how successfully they're doing it, but the idea of doing that seems to make some sense to me, rather than hitching yourself to commercial organizations that, as I said, I believe are still in the early stages of really getting ranking and rating systems to reflect reality across multiple territories. So when it comes to national bodies trying to do rating or rankings, my feeling is that you need to differentiate between rating and ranking. And ranking seems to be something that is more appropriate for national bodies to do. You need to be able to rank your players so that from a national body point of view, you understand who your top players are, who are the players you might want to select for teams. When you're doing closed or open tournaments regionally or on a national level, you can invite your top players based on rankings. And ranking is different from rating. So if you take tennis, the tennis rankings for the professionals is always done based on results in competition over a period of time, with older results eventually having less impact or dropping off of your ranking calculation. And again, if you look at, say, the PPA, that's exactly how they do the rankings. So if you look, there's like a race over the course of a year, and you build up points based on your results over the course of a year. In addition, so it becomes like a race, and as you accumulate more points over the year, your ranking obviously settles, and then as you get to the next year, you kind of start again. If you look at WPC, World Pickleball Championships, they also have their own ranking system, which works more along those lines. So as you play and win in their tournaments, across their many tournaments, you get points each time you win. If you go further in a tournament, the further you go, quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals, the amount of points for each match increases, but also over a period of time, your more aged results drop off of your ranking. So your ranking is always kind of relevant based on what you've achieved in more recent times. And I think this approach for national bodies would make more sense. So when I look at USA sealing this partnership with DUPR, I'm not sure how valuable it is for a national body to do that. I think looking at rankings for national bodies makes more sense. When it comes to the likes of DUPR, I feel that what they should be is more of an indicator of your level, and more understanding needs to be had regionally and across different countries as to how that DUPR ranking may be affected by regional anomalies in the data. And so when I look at this, my final kind of feeling on it is that rating systems have a place. Where they're useful is for trying to get an idea of the level that you're at so that you can play with the right level of people. I firmly believe that competition, particularly open competition, should not be regulated by a rating system. If I am a low player and I want to go into an open competition that has qualifying, I should be allowed to do so. Whereas currently, because of things like DUPR rating, if you're not at a certain level, they will not let you go into an open category. I feel in a sport that is in its early stages, particularly where we have limited number of players in some of the countries around Asia, it should remain open and shouldn't be dictated by a rating system. So rating systems like DUPR should just be used to have an understanding of what level you're at, rather than dictating who you can play in tournaments. And national bodies, in my opinion, should focus on building rankings so that they can understand who are their top players down to the top 100, 200 across every category they play. And I don't think that rating systems are the way to go to achieve that. So with that, that's my thoughts on that article. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you don't agree with my views, please feel free to comment in the comment sections below. And as always, if you like what we do and want to help us get the word out there a little bit more, please do like and subscribe, and see you next time.